Japan has a savings rate that makes American financial culture look like a different species. The average Japanese household saves approximately 17% of disposable income. The American equivalent is 4.5%. Japan has more ATMs per capita than almost any country on Earth and one of the lowest credit card debt rates in the developed world. The country that invented the world's most efficient manufacturing systems, the bullet train, and the concept of continuous incremental improvement applied those same principles to personal finance decades before American personal finance content discovered that discipline and automation produce better results than motivation and willpower. But here's what makes the Japanese approach to money genuinely different from the Western version, and specifically from the American version that dominates the financial content you consume. It isn't louder. It isn't more aggressive. It doesn't optimize for speed or drama or the kind of visible transformation that makes for a compelling before and after story. It optimizes for permanence, for the kind of wealth that accumulates without announcing itself, that survives market corrections and lifestyle inflation, and the social pressure to perform financial success rather than build it. The kind of wealth that, when it arrives, looks to everyone around you like it appeared from nowhere, because the habits that produced it were never visible to anyone watching. Today, we're going through 10 of those habits, not as cultural tourism, but as practical frameworks that work regardless of where you live, because the behavioral principles underneath them are human, not Japanese. My name's William. Let's get into it.
1. Kakeibo, the analog budget that outperforms every hap. Kakeibo, pronounced Kakeibo, is a Japanese household budgeting method developed in 1904 by Hani Motoko, one of Japan's first female journalists. It is a physical notebook. You write your income at the top of the month, you write your fixed expenses, you write what you want to save, and then you track every purchase by hand across 4 categories: needs, wants, culture, and unexpected. At the end of each month, Kakeibo asks 4 questions. How much money did you have? How much did you spend? How much did you save? How can you improve next month? Studies on Kakeibo practitioners in Japan show savings improvements of 35% in the first year of adoption. The mechanism is not the notebook, it is the act of writing, which creates a friction between impulse and purchase that digital payment removes entirely. When you tap a card, the transaction is frictionless and therefore nearly invisible. When you write the purchase in a physical book at the end of the day, it becomes an event requiring acknowledgement. The acknowledgement changes the behavior. You don't need the specific Kakeibo format, you need the principle. Manual tracking of spending creates awareness that automatic tracking consistently fails to produce because awareness requires friction and apps remove friction by design. 2. Ikigai applied to earning, only work that matters. Ikigai is typically translated as reason for being, the intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. It is a life philosophy. It is also, practically, a career philosophy that produces a specific financial outcome. People who work within their Ikigai, who have identified the intersection of genuine interest, real skill, market demand, and compensation, consistently outperform people who optimize for income alone, across every career metric that matters for long-term wealth. They stay longer. They develop deeper expertise. They compound professional capital in ways that produce income growth that salary chasers moving between roles for incremental raises frequently don't. The financial habit here is deliberate career investment rather than opportunistic job hopping, not because loyalty is intrinsically valuable, but because depth of expertise built over time in a field you're genuinely interested in produces the kind of income ceiling that breadth of experience across multiple unrelated fields rarely reaches. Know what your Ikigai is. Build toward it deliberately. The income follows the expertise follows the genuine interest. The genuine interest cannot be faked for 20 years.
3. Mottainai, the philosophy that eliminates waste spending. Mottainai is a Japanese concept expressing regret over waste, the feeling of loss when something of value is discarded or used carelessly. It applies to food, to objects, to time, to money.
It is not frugality in the Western sense, not the reluctant sacrifice of something desired. It is a genuine appreciation for what already exists that makes the desire for replacement feel unnecessary rather than suppressed. In practice, Mottainai produces a specific financial behavior. Things are maintained, repaired, and used to their full useful life before replacement is considered. The Japanese concept of boro, the practice of patching and repairing textiles until they are more patch than original fabric, is Mottainai applied to clothing. The 2019 Honda in the driveway of the person with $2 million in index funds is Mottainai applied to transportation. The financial result of genuine Mottainai is that the replacement cycle for every major spending category extends, which is the single most powerful mechanism for accumulating the surplus that builds wealth, not earning more, replacing less. 4. Hara Hachi Bu. Stop at 80%. Hara Hachi Bu is the Okinawan practice rooted in Confucian teaching of eating until you are 80% full rather than completely satiated. Okinawa has one of the highest concentrations of centenarians in the world. Researchers attribute part of this to Hara Hachi Bu, the consistent practice of consuming less than capacity. Applied to money, Hara Hachi Bu is the practice of spending to 80% of what you can afford and saving the remaining 20% before the spending even begins. Not budgeting the full income and saving whatever remains. Deciding in advance that 80% is the ceiling and that the surplus belongs somewhere else before lifestyle makes a claim on it. This is the Japanese version of pay yourself first, and it predates the American formulation by centuries. The cultural principle is identical, the cultural framing is different, and the cultural framing matters because Hara Hachi Bu isn't experienced as deprivation in the context of its origin. It is experienced as wisdom. The distinction between deprivation and wisdom determines whether the behavior lasts.
5. Chokinbako, the savings box mentality. Chokinbako, literally savings box, is the Japanese tradition of the physical piggy bank or savings container that makes the accumulation of money visible and concrete. Japanese children grow up with the practice of putting physical money into a visible container and watching it accumulate. The visibility is the mechanism. Digital savings accounts are psychologically invisible. The number exists somewhere on a screen you check occasionally. The physical savings box is present, on the shelf, in the room, accumulating in a way that can be seen and felt and counted. The modern application is creating visible savings milestones that provide the same psychological feedback that Chokinbako provided. A savings account named for its specific purpose, emergency fund, house deposit, investment seed, with a visible progress tracker produces more consistent savings behavior than a generic savings account with an anonymous balance. Name the account. Make the goal visible. The behavioral psychology of visible progress is not a Japanese invention, but Chokinbako applied it to personal finance for centuries before Western behavioral economics documented why it works. 6. Ma, the value of empty space in spending. Ma is a Japanese aesthetic concept meaning negative space, the deliberate emptiness that gives meaning to what surrounds it. In architecture, ma is the space between structural elements. In music, it is the silence between notes. In personal finance, ma is the margin between income and spending that most people allow to collapse entirely. The household that earns $8,000 per month and commits $7,800 to fixed obligations has no ma. The household that commits $5,500 has ma, and that space is where financial opportunity lives. Ma doesn't earn interest, it doesn't appear on a balance sheet, but it is what allows the emergency to be handled without debt, the opportunity to be pursued without financing, the bad month to be absorbed without restructuring everything around it. The financial margin is the ma of personal finance. Guard it with the same intentionality the Japanese architect guards empty space in a room.
7. Kaizen, 1% better every month.
Kaizen, continuous incremental improvement, is the management philosophy behind Toyota's production system, Japanese manufacturing efficiency, and some of the most significant industrial achievements of the 20th century. It is also the most sustainable financial improvement framework available to anyone who has ever tried to overhaul their entire financial life in January and abandon the overhaul by March. The Kaizen financial habit is one specific improvement per month, not a complete financial transformation. One thing. This month, open the high-yield savings account. Next month, increase the retirement contribution by 1 percentage point. The month after, cancel 2 unused subscriptions and redirect the savings. The month after that, run the expense ratio comparison on every fund in the 401k. 12 months of 1% improvements produces a financial life that is unrecognizable from where it started, not through dramatic intervention, but through the compounding of small, correct decisions made consistently and never reversed. Kaizen works in manufacturing because it is sustainable. It works in personal finance for exactly the same reason. 8. Nemawashi, the slow decision that never gets reversed. Nemawashi, literally going around the roots, is the Japanese process of building consensus slowly before making a significant decision. In business, it means consulting every stakeholder before a proposal reaches formal approval, so that the decision, when made, has no opposition. In personal finance, it means the deliberate delay of every major financial decision until the impulse has been examined from every relevant angle. The Western financial culture treats speed as sophistication. The Japanese financial culture treats deliberation as wisdom. The Nemawashi financial habit is a mandatory waiting period, 48 hours minimum for any purchase above a defined threshold, 30 days for any major financial commitment. Not to research the decision more thoroughly, to allow the impulse that generated the desire to dissipate before the wallet opens. The decisions that survive 30 days of consideration are almost universally the right ones. The decisions that couldn't wait 30 days are almost universally the ones you regret. Nemawashi doesn't require willpower, it requires a rule applied consistently to a category of decisions. The rule does the work that willpower cannot sustain.
9. Gaman, patience as a financial strategy. Gaman is the Japanese value of enduring difficulty with patience and dignity. Not the suppression of discomfort, but the calm acceptance of it as a temporary condition that does not require immediate resolution. In personal finance, Gaman is the ability to hold a position through discomfort without restructuring the entire strategy around the discomfort. The market drops 25%, and Gaman is the quality that keeps the index fund position intact while the instinct to sell is loudest. The savings rate feels too high, and Gaman is the quality that maintains it through the months where maintaining it requires the most effort. The research on investor behavior consistently shows that patience is worth more than any specific investment decision, because the returns are available to anyone who stays invested and unavailable to anyone who doesn't. Gaman is not an investment strategy. It is the quality that makes every investment strategy work. 10. Shinise, building something that outlasts you. Shinise refers to long-established Japanese businesses, companies that have operated for generations, sometimes centuries. Japan has more companies over 100 years old than any other country on Earth. The Shinise philosophy is building for permanence rather than for exit, creating something designed to endure rather than to be maximized and sold. In personal finance, Shinise is the habit of building financial systems designed to outlast any single market cycle, any single income source, any single life circumstance. The diversified index fund portfolio that requires no active management, the estate plan that transfers not just wealth, but the philosophy that built it, the financial habits installed in children through demonstration rather than instruction. Shinise wealth is not the wealth that peaks dramatically. It is the wealth that persists quietly, across generations, across market cycles, across the circumstances that dismantle wealth built on a single concentrated bet. Build for permanence, not for the peak.
10 habits, None of them require a specific income, a specific country, or a specific cultural background to apply. They required the behavioral principles underneath them: deliberation, patience, restraint, visibility, continuity, applied consistently to the financial decisions that most people make automatically and most people get wrong in the same predictable ways. The Japanese household saving 17% of disposable income isn't doing something dramatically different from what the American household saving 4.5% is doing. It's doing the same things: earning, spending, saving, investing, with a different set of behavioral defaults underneath them. The defaults are changeable, the habits are learnable, and the wealth they produce is quieter, more durable, and more permanent than anything a louder approach has ever reliably built. 10 habits, none of them loud, all of them permanent. Subscribe for a new video every week, and drop the one habit from this list you're implementing this week in the comments.